Welcome back to the Camilla Tominey Show on GB News. I'm joined in the studio now by Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary, newly elected Tory MP, one of 121. Suella.
Absolutely.
Can we just cut to the chase? Are you standing?
Oh, gosh. I know, Camilla, you want the drama, you want the headlines. I'm going to have to disappoint you.
Why?
No announcements. Listen,
Why are you holding back? Because
This
it's
is-
obvious
I'll tell you
from
why.
your speech when you won your seat on Thursday night, early Friday morning. It's been obvious from some of the op-eds you've written before the election. It's certainly obvious from what you've written in the Sunday Telegraph today that you are, to use the press expression, on manoeuvres. So why not just confirm that you want to lead the party?
Listen, because unlike 2019 and unlike in 2022, we have the luxury of being in opposition. There is no urgency to install a new leader. What is urgent and absolutely essential now is that we as a party reflect and accept what got us into this existentially damaging situation. And at the moment, that's what concerns me the most. There is still disagreement. There are many of my colleagues, both inside Parliament and outside, who believe that we just need to do more of the same. That's what concerns me.
Have they said that yet? I mean, the counter-argument to this would be that you are being disagreeable. You know, it wasn't helpful to Rishi Sunak throughout the campaign to have you sort of like lobbing grenades in. There hasn't been from you this kind of unite or die mentality. Lots of different Tory MPs, you know, are dissatisfied with all these different caucuses representing all these different positions. Why can't you just be a broad church that sings from the same hymn sheet instead of people singing different songs at the same time?
Well, first of all, what I would say is I didn't really take part in this campaign, so I didn't do any media. I shared my thoughts, and I think most of the things I wrote were about attacking Labour and the kind of doom that awaits us under Labour, something that horrifies me, and that's what we really need to get ourselves in gear for, to oppose and expose all the harmful, damaging things that they're going to be doing. But the reality is that, you know, I've not been in charge of this party. I've not been part of the cabinet for many months. Decisions were made above my head. But I think the point with that, and the point you're making, is, you know, if they're making mistakes, it is incumbent on some of us, at least, to point out some of those mistakes I'm making. I did it privately for many years. I wasn't listened to. Sometimes you need to say things and they need to be heard. And we do that by putting country first, and I'm afraid party second. And the point is, I think it's disingenuous to blame, you know, people like myself for pointing out the mistakes when actually the cause of the problem were the mistakes themselves. So I think that's a sideline and a distraction. The point that we need to talk about is what went wrong to get us into this situation. Those of us who said things were going wrong are not the fault. I'm not allocating blame to others. We've got to be really careful about this. This is not about pointing the finger and saying this one got it wrong and this one's a bad person. We're all in this together. That's why the first thing I said when I got re-elected was, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry to the British people. My party let you down. I'm implicated as well. We're all in this together.
No, I get that.
I'm not passing the blame on to anybody else. We've all got to take responsibility. We've all got to be honest, searingly honest.
But
it's going to be uncomfortable for some people. We've got to be honest about what went wrong, because otherwise we don't have any hope of fixing it.
We're going to get on to what went wrong, but one of the things that did get wrong was a lack of party discipline. If you one day want to lead this party, how can you expect people to be disciplined and loyal to you if you haven't been loyal to the previous Prime Minister?
Well, what is party discipline? What is loyalty? You know, over the last several years, we've had Prime Minister after Prime Minister. I mean, many people accused Rishi Sunak of bringing down Boris Johnson. I mean, many people were dismayed that Boris Johnson was brought down in the way that he was. I knocked on many doors. I'm not going to get into pointing the finger at people. What I'm just trying to say is that this is not about the superficial thing of, well, you're not nice and you're a bit spiky and you're a bit rude and we didn't all sing from the hymn sheet. That's not the problem. The problem is much more profound. We didn't deliver on our promises, and we were not a Conservative party. We said we wanted to lower immigration. We categorically did not do that. We said we wanted to lower taxation. We raised taxes. We said we were the party of common sense, and yet children were mutilated in our schools and in our NHS on our watch. That's why we failed, not because there were a few of us who wrote a few articles here and there pointing out the problem. Let's keep that in perspective.
No, I think that's a good point. And also I think it's a good point to say that there's this talk, isn't there now, that the Conservatives have to somehow lurch to the right and out Farage in reform. And yet actually it would probably just be adequate to just honour your manifesto pledges. The 2019 manifesto was a pretty robust Conservative manifesto that many righties could happily sign up to. The problem was that it wasn't delivered. So it's not as if you've got this electorate crying out for extreme right-wingism. You've just got an electorate crying out for Tories to do what they said they would do. However, it's probably fair for me to say to you, well, you didn't bring down immigration. You were at the Home Office. So you had a role in not bringing down immigration. Explain to us why it couldn't be brought down. What obstacles did you face? I mean, what was the problem?
Well, I've been over that quite a lot. So the reason why, despite best efforts, both privately, and otherwise, I was unable to lower immigration is because I was blocked. The reality of government is that you cannot act unilaterally. You know, you might have the best idea, you might want to just even do something radical like honour a manifesto pledge, which is what I wanted to do. But if no one else agrees with you around the cabinet table, you're not going to get very far. So you were more
blocked, do you think, by your own colleagues, or were you blocked by civil servants saying, no, we can't do this?
I'm not going to blame civil servants. That's the weak minister's approach. A minister decides and directs, and with the Prime Minister's sign-off, policy gets determined. Unfortunately, as I've set out over the months, the Prime Minister didn't support me on the plan to lower migration, which is why immigration soared. That's why I wasn't able to cut immigration. I know you have spoken about this before, but obviously people watching this aren't, closely following every little second of everything you've written or indeed the minutiae. But are you saying the two fundamental points were he wouldn't believe in Rwanda and didn't get it off on time and delayed and prevaricated, but also this issue around the ECHR? Are those the two pinch points here? I knocked on thousands of doors doing this all over the country. I went to help colleagues in different parts of the country, and I heard the same message everywhere I went. And people would whisper it. They were fearful of saying it. They would say something like this: Suella, I'm not a racist. And I'm very nervous about saying this, but immigration's too high and the illegal migrants coming across the channel is unacceptable. And I would say to them, I know you're not a racist. It's not racist to want to control our borders. And people are scared about talking about it. We didn't solve that problem. We promised time and time again to lower immigration. We didn't do it. We promised time and time again to stop the boats. We didn't do it. And that's on us. And so I think that that's why we failed. This is not about lurching to the right or lurching to the left. It's about simply doing what we said we would do. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to credibility. We didn't leave the European Convention on Human Rights. That would have stopped the boats. That's why, we did lack credibility. We said we would do whatever it would take. We didn't do whatever it would take.
But the argument between people who want to leave it and people who say, well, we must obey by international law, that sort of you versus, say, Lord Cameron debate, is just going to continue raging. I mean, you're down to 1-2-1 now. How do you read the complexion of the Tories that are left? There's a need now to rebuild this party, to unite this party behind someone. Could be you, could be Kemi Badenoch, could be Ian Duncan Smith at this stage, as far as anyone can tell, right? But what happens now to that grouping of 1-2-1? Because people are going to have to make compromises. Are you going to be able to get along with Caroline Noakes?
Listen, we have to make a decision about what kind of party we want to be. I believe in British politics. There's space only for one Conservative party. And that's why we lost this election. Our vote went from about 13 million in 2019 to just under 7 million this week. We lost hundreds of brilliant Conservative MPs because of reform. Millions of our voters were betrayed and angry with the Conservatives, and they went to an alternative: reform. So I believe whoever's leading the party, whoever's in the party, needs to acknowledge this basic truth, that we are facing an existential threat from reform. And we need to change ourselves to ensure that we neutralise that threat, that we bring those people back home.
Or if you're going to get on better with Richard Tice and Nigel Farage than Caroline Noakes and Simon Hoare, why don't you just join Reform?
Listen, this is not about which party we're in, actually. This is about what the Conservative Party stands for. We should be standing for lower migration, lower taxation, common sense, more housing, aspiration. That's, we've got to provide hope for the next generation. We failed to build enough houses, for example. We failed to actually tackle some of the structural defects in the NHS. We were voting more on pedicabs and smoking bans in the last 6 months
you are talking
than NHS
but you're talking
reform.
like Nigel Farage.
I think
so
I'm
why
talking
not
like
just
a
hook up with him?
Conservative.
OK, but then he has out-Conservatived you and the Tories, right? He's come up with the policy platform that arguably you should have come up with and campaigned on. We've agreed on that. The Conservatives have, in his words, become such a broad church that they're not practicing the same religion anymore. Do you agree with that?
I want us to welcome people who support the agenda of low tax, low immigration, leaving the European Court of Human Rights, building more houses, empowering young people and being proud of our country.
You can see the point I'm making.
I think that's a vision
got dissent
that
in
can
the
be
party.
unifying.
You're not necessarily going to be able to achieve that because you've got dissent in the party. But these are all of the things that Reform want. So have you ever considered defecting to Reform?
Gosh, listen, I'm in the Conservative Party. I've been in the Conservative Party since I was a teenager. I'm one of those geeks who joined when I was about, I think, 15 or 16. My mum was a councillor. I'll blame her. She persuaded me to join. Listen, my heart is in the Conservative Party. I've grown up in the Conservative Party. I've fought so many elections. I've been elected just now as a Conservative.
The Conservative Party are never going to outright Farage, are they?
Well, as I said, this is not about lurching to the right. This is just about doing what you say you're going to do. We lacked credibility. We kind of tried to talk tough during the election. And actually, for several years, we've talked tough. We've beaten our chests and we tried to sound right-wing. But our actual record of delivery has been one of statism, failed liberalism, high tax, high migration, and anything but tough talk.
Yeah.
And that dissonance was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
We couldn't.
But look, I'm asking you a
kid
question
people.
about Reform because you're clearly dissatisfied. You weren't happy with Rishi Sunak. He fired you. I mean, that wasn't ideal for you either. You must have had some point over the course of the last 6 weeks where you flirted in your own mind with the idea of joining Reform. You sort of said you could work with Nigel Farage. So have you actually ever considered just enough of all this? Enough of the blues and going over to the turquoises?
Is that their colour?
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure if it's turquoise or teal or...
You're dodging the question.
Aquamarine.
Have you ever thought about joining Reform? Just
Listen,
yes or no?
I have looked at the Reform Party because I have been listening to what they're saying, and I have met many, many Reform voters during this campaign, people who are lifelong Conservatives, and I've listened to them, and they said, we've backed the party for decades, and we are furious with your party, Suella, and we're going to Reform. And I've been listening to them. They're not, attacking Reform voters as being racist or thugs is not the right attitude. Demeaning that party is not the right attitude. We don't have any God-given entitlement to exist or to those voters. We need to be humble. We need to be humble in the face of the very strong feedback we've got from our own core voters, millions of people in this election. And if we don't stop and listen to what they're saying, which is very, very clear and very simple,
well, let's put it this way,
we are going to fail.
I think that you want to run for the leadership, but you don't want to tell me that right now, OK? You might have competition from people who are more moderate. If somebody more moderate wins the leadership and not you, and let's be honest, when you did run for leader before, you were eliminated, after the second round. So you've got to build up a really strong caucus of support to get onto the ballot paper to go to the membership. You must appreciate that. So question one, if a moderate does lead the Conservative Party, would you serve under them? Because you're saying it's all gone in the wrong direction. If we go in a Rishi Sunak direction, you say it's going to be completely self-indulgent. Rishi doesn't get it, you say. You said that the Tories have failed in office and deserved this result. So you might end up with a leader who advocates a more Sunakian approach to a Suella approach. Can you serve under such a person?
Listen, these kind of discussions are so premature, Camilla, with respect. As I said, we're right now in the place of the aftermath of a devastating result.
Sure.
Tory MPs are, demoralised. Our members are exhausted. Everyone's just waking up from a shattering disaster. And we can't make decisions like that. That's why what I'm trying to say is we all need to take stock. We don't have the burden of government right now. We don't need to rush into a knee-jerk reaction or a rushed leadership decision.
So you're happy for Rishi Sunak to remain as leader for some time?
The main objective now is for all of us to come to an agreement on the diagnosis of the problem.
Does Rishi Sunak stay in place?
Can we fix it?
So how long should we have Rishi Sunak in place
Again,
while you all get your
those are
heads
details
together?
that are going to be sorted out in
just
due
approximately
course.
Weeks or months? Because quite a few Tories are saying to me, we need to get our heads together. I spoke to Ian Duncan-Smith for my Telegraph podcast on Friday. He was like, just take stock. Somebody's got to lead the party while you do that. So are you happy for Rishi Sunak to be there for a few more weeks, couple of months, 3 months, while you all organise yourself?
Of course, we need some stability. And Rishi Sunak has announced that he's going to resign, but he has to stay in just to maintain and ordering a functional party. But we need to also... We can't, have this introspective soul-searching going on for, indefinitely. We also need to get fighting fit and start opposing the Labour Party, because I tell you what, they are going to use this window whilst we are navel-gazing to, bring in pretty harmful things to our country, whether it's on immigration, whether it's tax. We've already seen Keir Starmer's scrapped the Rwanda plan.
Who do you want to be having the conversations with in the tea room to get this party back on track?
We're all talking to each other.
Are you?
We're
so
all talking to each other. I've had lots of conversations. I'm not going to disclose who I'm talking to, but I'm very supportive. I'm very encouraged.
Do you have a dialogue with her at all?
I'm very encouraged by a lot of the conversations I'm having with lots of colleagues at the moment. At the moment, as I say, everyone is very, very disappointed and just sad. A lot of my colleagues, as I said, have just lost their jobs. I know this, everyone loves the drama of politics and it's the blue team or the red team, but there's a massive human impact. These are people's jobs, these are their livelihoods. For many of my colleagues, this came as a total and utter shock through no fault of their own. They were brilliant community champions. They were embedded in their constituencies. They'd worked for decades, experts in their fields, brilliant campaigners, and out of a job overnight, just like that. It's been a shock for many people. And I do think we need to accept that human impact on them, their teams, their families, but also regroup. But I say, as I said, the most pressing need right now is for us to acknowledge the problem and agree on the problem. And that's what concerns me the most. There are still those in my party who are saying we need to do more of what we've just been doing. Sure. We need to cut out members, for example, in the selection of the new leader. There is a serious effort afoot in the party. Your viewers should know there's a serious effort afoot in the party by certain groups to cut out the members and disenfranchise members. And they want to ensure that MPs regain the right and the exclusive right to choose the leader. That would be totally devastating to our party.
Well, it'd be devastating to you because you might not be as popular with MPs as you will be with members. So you certainly don't want a leadership race.
Well, this is not about self-interest. This is about the members. Our members have already been disenfranchised with the selection of many candidates during this recent campaign. They've been the foot soldiers in what has been a brutal battle. And they have been ignored time and time again. Members did not choose Rishi Sunak.
No. Suella, can we bring this conversation full circle by me saying this to you? You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either. Should we settle on that? Because I don't see you ruling this out.
Listen, you're desperate. You're not going to give up, are you?
No, I don't give up. I'm afraid I'm a dog with a bone.
I'm having lots of conversations with colleagues. I'm very flattered and very encouraged by what people are saying to me. Right. But this is a really difficult time for our party. There are lots of things to think about. But we need to agree on the diagnosis of the problem before we reach a resolution on the prescription.
Speaking like a leadership contender, so you're not ruling it out.
I'm having lots of conversations and reflecting.
Suella Braverman, thank you very much indeed, not least after a very difficult week, to come in and speak so candidly with me about what needs to happen next for the Tories. Thank you very much.
Thank you.